Hi. I wondered if you'd ever heard of cancer or leukemia. That's a disease that some people can get when they get really sick from their blood cells not working right. And it can happen to adults, but it can also happen to kids. And maybe one of your classmates is dealing with that right now, or maybe you have a friend or a family member. So I'd like to explain a little bit about it. Cancer and leukemia can affect kids who are otherwise really healthy.
This is a picture of Kyle before he had leukemia. He was feeling well, but not long after that he got really sick. Lots of kids get sick, but this time Kyle had to go to the hospital and they found out he had leukemia. The doctors told us that it would make him very sick, but that they knew how to help him with medicine.
What the doctors have to do to help you is give you a drug called chemotherapy. And when they give you that makes you feel really bad. And for a while you're really sick.
Like Kyle is in this picture. In this picture you can see that he's really pale and he's lost all of his hair from the chemotherapy, and he's in bed because he's feeling kind of sick. That can happen when you have chemotherapy. You can also get sick really easily, so the person with leukemia sometimes has to miss a lot of school.
Over time, things get a lot better, and I'm going to show you how doctors can make that work and what happens to a kid who has leukemia when he's going through treatment. So this is Kyle. It's actually any little boy or little girl who is diagnosed with leukemia, but we're going to call him Kyle just for the sake of this exercise. So Kyle was a healthy little boy until he started feeling sick, and one day he got so sick he had to go to the hospital. And the doctors did some tests and found out that his blood cells weren't working very well. Now these green guys here represent healthy blood cells. They're healthy red blood cells and white blood cells and platelets. And we all have these in our bodies, and that's what helps us move and work and play and feel good. And we don't even think about the fact that they're in us and they're working well. But when somebody gets cancer or leukemia, those blood cells start to grow really fast, and some of them grow into cancer cells. Now these gray guys represent cancer cells. And what happens is the cancer cells come in and they invade the blood system so that there's just lots and lots of cancer cells, and that's what makes the kiddo feel so sick. So, to make that better, what the doctor has to do is give medicine. The medicine to get rid of cancer cells is called chemotherapy, and we're going to use this Superman to represent chemotherapy. Because chemotherapy is kind of like Superman. It comes in and kills off all the bad guys and lets the good guys live. When chemotherapy is given, it goes into the blood cells and tries to kill off all the cancer cells. But in the process, because it's so strong, but it has no way to know what are good and bad cells, it also kills off some of the good cells too. So after a lot of chemotherapy, maybe almost all the cancer is gone, but a lot of the good blood cells have been killed off too. So they just aren't enough to work very well. And that makes Kyle feel really, really sick. And you remember that picture of him when he was not feeling well in the hospital? Well, that was in the middle of that kind of treatment. But so they let him rest when that happens. And then as things go on and he starts to feel a little bit better, there might be more cancer cells in there. And chemotherapy comes in again, and again sorts out the cancer cells, but gets rid of some of the good cells too. And that just keeps happening. And over time, he kills off more of the cancer cells and leaves more of the good cells to work. And that can happen over lots of months or even a few years. But when it's all done, it gets the cancer cells out and gives the good cells a chance to come in. And by the end, chemotherapy has won and has killed off all the cancer cells. And all the good cells are left. And Kyle starts to feel much better. And he doesn't need chemotherapy anymore, so he says, "Thanks, chemotherapy," and chemotherapy goes away. And that means that Kyle isn't on treatment anymore. He doesn't need to take that medicine anymore that makes him feel kind of sick. But when he's better, all that is better, and he can go back to school and be with you. So That's what I want you to remember about leukemia and cancer when it hits one of your classmates or friends. It's hard and they don't feel very good. But with your help, they can get through it. If you stay their friends and remember that they're working really hard to get better and be back at school and be with you, then you can be a good friend to them.
This is a picture of Kyle after treatment, when he was healthy again and feeling good. And that's what all kids with leukemia or other forms of cancer want. They want to get through treatment and feel better and still have friends. And as they're going through all of that, you can help them a lot by just being their friend.